So another scenario, Joel, I want to build a $2 million home for some folks down at the beach. I've got a limited license, but I've got a good friend who has an unlimited license. Can I get him to just put his name on the permit?
Well, that would be licensed lending. and you contracting to do that project could possibly have trouble collecting the funds due on the contract because you're not appropriately licensed for that limitation. And there's several ways to actually do that correctly. One of them is to go ahead and upgrade your license limitation prior to signing your contract to perform that work. And it's actually a fairly quick process in the scheme of getting a license. An upgrade is a lot quicker, so it's not as difficult as you would think. And there is a method to where they can do the memo of understanding with the board. That's where they don't have to do the full audit.
That would be an agreed upon procedure.
Agreed upon procedure. Yes. Documents where it doesn't cost as much money and it's a quicker process. So that would be the best case scenario for that contractor that's wanting to build a house over their limitation. I would probably recommend that one. There is another way, which is a joint venture. And a lot of joint ventures they got a license and then the other individual doesn't have a license, and that's where they get themselves in trouble. I see a lot of contracts that list the individual that's not licensed and then list the licensed contractor as a joint venture, but the regulations require that both parties have the appropriate classification, with at least one party having the appropriate limitation, and that would be the proper joint venture. That's also a risky thing. Anytime you're joint venturing with someone else,
right?
That can be a problem as well. So it's better just to upgrade your license limitation and take it on yourself.
And those procedures are fairly simple. I can find the limitation increase paperwork in the license portal.
It is in the portal,
and it details what requirements there, with the audit or the agreed upon procedure, or even a bond, which is an available option if someone wants to expedite things a little bit quicker. When it comes to the joint venture, though, that is where people get involved in situations that they don't necessarily want to be in. The joint venture would be the individual pulling the permit, correct? Or the not necessarily individual, but the joint venture would be contracted to do the project, as opposed to just me contracting to do the project.
Yes, you would have to list the contract listing both licenses in both companies or individuals, with at least, once again, one of them having the appropriate limitation,
right?
With both license numbers on the contract, which you're supposed to have your license number on the contract anyway.
Right.
That is a requirement in this particular case in the joint venture, where both individuals have the classification with at least one of them having the appropriate limitation. You would need to list both license numbers and both names and contract that way. But once again, it's anytime that you're sort of doing business with another individual or another company like that, it's a risk that you don't really need to take when it's not that hard to upgrade your limitation.
License lending is complicated in and of itself. We've explored some about the unlicensed scenarios, and now we're talking about when we're both licensed, but yet we're still having license lending take place because there's some issues. We discussed the limitations there, and that's great information for our licensees to understand and know. Let's talk about classifications. So can I license lend with my classification as well? And I'll give you an example. I've got a building classification, which allows me to do commercial, industrial, institutional work. My friend has a residential license, a residential classification. if he wants to bid on a commercial project and obtain a building permit for that commercial project, he can't do that with a residential classification. So if he calls me and says, "Can you pull the permit for me?" Even though, again, we're both licensed, that's still licensed lending, correct?
It's still licensed lending. You would both have to have the appropriate classification if you were going to do the joint venture. In that particular scenario, one of you does not have the proper classification, and so that does not meet the criteria of a joint venture. And you pulling a permit for your friend who has a residential license would get you both in trouble if it came to the attention of the board.
Correct.